This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
What is good? Happy Thursday, presented by PointsBet Canada. It's the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. Rosie, how you feeling on this thirsty Thursday? I'm sure you're going to have a couple cocktails tonight, my man.
Yeah, we will see. The wife's out of town. Me and the boys might have a little boys' night. I don't know what they're going to be drinking, but I might have something hard.
I like that. I like that. Speaking of boys, we should promote coming up tomorrow. We had the pleasure and liberty of interviewing Claude Giroux of the Ottawa Senators. So we're going to play that in its entirety coming up tomorrow. Great get by you. We even joked about you potentially being an NHL insider in your media career, which I think would be fucking hilarious. Oh, I swore again. Damn it.
Oh, we're already toast on YouTube. That took all of 45 seconds.
This will be the running gag on the show for the rest of eternity. But again, that's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review wherever you're checking us out. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest in all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, leave those in the chat down below. We'll get to them. And again, feeling good about this Maple Leafs team as we get over the boards. All right, so lots to cover on today's show. It is a back-to-back, and we always like to bring up the back-to-backs, Rosie. Toronto 5-0-1, by the way, in the second game of back-to-back so far this season, the latest being that win in Philadelphia back on Sunday. But 3 in a row. Let's take care of last night's game first, the 2-1 win against Nashville. I thought it was a gutsy effort, sans Austin Matthews.
Yeah, it was. A low-scoring affair. I think with those two goalies going at it, we should have taken the under going into it. I thought about that about halfway through, but it was. You didn't seem to notice Austin missing too much, except for on the power play, I would say. Really trying to get that thing going and find the jam. Obviously, they got it done late in the game and did enough to win the game for sure. But kind of just an overall defensive goaltender battle is what it looked like to me. And yeah, it's nice again that when you're missing a guy like Austin Matthews, you got some other guys to step up, guys like Nylander, Tavares, and Marner, who all stepped up in according to getting the win.
The biggest positive for me, Rosie, was Matt Murray, 32 stops. He made a couple of 10-bellers like in the first 2 minutes of the game. I thought he made a couple big-time ones late in the game when it was in fact 2-1. And Toronto, don't look now, has surrendered 4 goals in their past 3 appearances. Are they starting to turn a corner defensively again, Rosie?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there was a little hiccup there last week where, some fingers were getting pointed at different things and the Twitter folks came out of the woodworks. You're pointing at me? No chance. This goaltending duo, I'm all behind, man. They've been solid, and they're going to have a hiccup here and there, but over the weekend they proved that they were bouncing back, and then Murray did a hell of a job last night, and I just think they're solid and can't wait for Sammy to get in here tonight and do the same thing against the Detroit Red Wings here.
Dude, Johnny T is buzzing. The captain's on fire again. A goal and an assist, his 3rd straight multi-point effort. I think since the onset, this guy's been underrated, which is crazy to say considering the coin they gave him. But to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs and produce the way he has, I don't think he'll ever get enough praise as a Maple Leaf or throughout his career. I think he's been exceptional this season, Rosie.
Yeah, and he's exceptional at both ends. Like, he's just a responsible player. He's a smart player. He can be using all kinds of different things, off face-offs, just when you need to shut it down. He just never has that blunder. He's never trying to get his cookies. He's never trying to do the high-risk, low-percentage plays, but still gets it done like crazy. And, to put up, close to career numbers here this year in his whatever 10th year it is impressive. And all the way he's leading this historic franchise, they're second in the NHL right now. Like, all this team gets is heat and questions, and they're second in the league. Like, what more do you want right now? Yes, the playoffs are coming. Yes, they need to get to the second round. But, I mean, say we face Tampa in the playoffs this year again, which it looks very much like we will. we're a much better team than we were last year, and Tampa's not as good a team as they were last year, and we were 1 goal in overtime away from winning that series. So like, all you can do is be happy with where they are, but no one seems to want to do that. But that's the culture of sports, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's the story for springtime. Don't worry about it. We will get to that in the spring when they inevitably take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You mentioned Tavares, or I did. That's his 13th 20-goal season in his NHL career. You just talk about the body of work, the resume, the professionalism. It's all intertwined in John Tavares. I just think he has been such a great story for this Leafs team, considering the heat he took for coming home, which again made no sense to me. Mitch Marner, the game-winning goal with 1:15 remaining. We'll get to that shitty-ass power play yesterday. It was terrible without Austin Matthews, but the irony, they scored the game winner via the power play. He ties another Darryl Sittler record, the franchise home point streak, 18 games. Again, I've run out of superlatives to describe and talk about Mitch Marner's season. He has been sensational, and it always seems like he's coming up with a big-time goal, which Rose, I hope, translates to the Stanley Cup playoffs this time around.
Yeah, big time, man. I mean, he's been stepping up this year in a big way, getting the big goals, getting the big points, being the man, right? And that's what you need, and it's nice to see. It does make me kind of scratch my head at, a buddy of mine last night was texting me, who's a big time follower of the Edmonton Oilers, doesn't follow the Leafs too much, and he just says, "Hey, what's with Matthews? Is he hurt or what's going on?" And I just kind of said, "Yeah, it's kind of a maintenance injury, day off, whatever." But it makes you think, he's kind of been, I don't want to say a shell of himself of last year, because that's not fair. His numbers are great and he's had just a really consistent input. But imagine that, like, he's not been what he was last year, but imagine he kind of finds that late in the season and Marner's doing what he does and our goaltenders are putting up 9.6 save percentages, man, and our defense is cleaning it up big time. Like, look out, right? And look out. That's all you can say. All the pieces are there right now. And like you say, imagine they roll this into the playoffs, and there's no reason to think they won't, because they're doing it right now. And I mean, it's just something to think about. And again, I just can't help but be content with where they are, number 2 in the NHL. Like, how can you throw any shade at them? How can you expect any more at this point as a fan? I don't give a rip what you've gone through in the past. What has this group done for me lately? And they have done a lot.
Yeah, and I'll mail you out a participation ribbon because, yeah, it's been a fun little ride here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I'm sorry to break it to you, nobody gives a shit about the 82 games. At least I don't. I'm treading water. I'm getting prepared mentally, physically, whatever I need, getting my alcohol supply ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs when it begins for real. Like, this is a fun little ride, but we want to get serious in the second half. That's all I think people are saying. That's all Leafs fans are saying, because they've been through this rodeo time and time before in the last decade. But yeah, it's been a phenomenal ride. I think they deserve, all the praise in the world. They've been really, really steady defensively speaking. I think this is a much improved team. And again, credit to them. They found their game a bit the last little while after a 2-week blip. And it just shows you the microscope of this city, that you lose a couple games and it's like the sky is falling again. So you mentioned no Austin Matthews. To your point, I thought it was really evident, his loss and his absence, the power play, which again was funny because they end up scoring on the 4-minute peeper with 4:22 left, 1:15 left. Mitch Marner scores the winner, and they were really snapping it around. It was Tavares to Nylander to Marner in an open net, and not even the great UC Saros, who's been on complete fire, could stop that puck. It just shows you the weapon that is this Toronto power, the weapon that is this Toronto power play. Like, it was just a great finish to a lousy game on the peeper.
Yeah, it is. They are a weapon, and they should be more of a weapon. I mean, for what they can do and the players they have and the chemistry they have and the depth they have with scoring, you'd think that they would be right up there, the very top of the NHL. And sometimes they seem to not be able to find it. Sometimes, Morgan Riley's taking heat when he's on it, and then they're taking heat if he's not on it. And it's kind of back and forth. But, they got a little, I don't want to say a gift. It was a clear, hard, heavy, high stick that should have been a penalty, no question. I always just cannot stand, like, I can't believe the rule is still in the NHL where it's an extra 2 minutes for drawing blood. And I say that because I'm a guy whose nose would bleed at the drop of a hat. Ever since I was a kid, I got my blood vessels broken doing whatever, and I could flick my nose and it's
The hell
gushing
were you
blood.
doing?
And there's other people where you could beat their nose into mush and no blood will come out. And that's a difference between an extra power play on top of another one. And it's just such a silly rule, drawing blood. It's like you could have the easiest, simplest high stick and it's a 4-minute, or you could absolutely tomahawk someone across the cheek and it's only 2. It just does not make sense to me. I hate that rule, but it benefited the Leafs last night anyway.
That is a unique perspective from somebody who had a couple fights in the National Hockey League. You know what I thought was great yesterday? And we talked about him going into the game, and he's been an exceptional story. Willie Nylander, man, played up the middle, 2 apples. I think they have to keep exploring that. There's been a lot of conversation. I think they think they maybe lack a bit of depth up the middle. Maybe they could add a center. Maybe it's an O'Reilly. Maybe it's a Horvat. Maybe somebody it's like, somebody who can play up the middle. But I think provided, Nylander continues to contribute and play the way he is, and he looks like he's being shot out of a cannon, I think he keep going to that well, man. Like, he has been off the charts good this season, Rosie.
Yeah, and people keep talking about him as trade bait. Like, why do you like he's so good?
Well, it's
and
because
he
they can't
continually
afford him. They can't afford him after this season. But
Are you are you
we won't
trying to
bring that
win
up.
this year?
Touchy
You trying to win
subject.
this
We're
year?
not going to bring. Yes.
You want to get O'Reilly? He's like minus 28. You think
No.
he
Who's
sounds
talking
very good
about trading
defensively?
Nylander right now? Who's talking about trading
Huh?
Nylander right now? Who's talking about trading
People are talking
Nylander right
about
now?
dishing Nylander for like stud defensemen and stuff like that all the
Oh, that's
time.
nuts. That's nuts.
I agree. Good. Glad we're
Yeah.
on the same page, Nikolai.
I think I don't want to have this conversation because people got all bitchy about it, but it's something they're going to have to look at in the offseason. But we are going to praise the regular season of Willie Nylander. Again, outstanding yesterday, 2 apples, and a 2-1 victory for the Maple Leafs against the Nashville Predators. So now the back-to-back, as referenced, into Detroit to take on the Red Wings for the 3rd time of 4 this season. They'll play one more time April 2nd at Scotiabank Arena. But they've had their way with Detroit, and most notably back on Saturday, a 4-1 victory. I think you look at the tape and you say, we can take care of business. I don't care if it's a back-to-back.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier in this week about not looking forward to the Saturday game, which is clearing away the
Yeah.
big game of the week, playing the Boston Bruins number 1 versus number 2 right now, interestingly enough, and a team that we would desperately like to catch in the standings, and they've given up 0 footing so far. So to get this kind of a 4-point game on Saturday is very easy to look forward to, but do not look past the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, a very close game yesterday against the Nashville Predators, very middle of the pack team, and now you got kind of a Detroit Red Wings team that you've had success against. Easy to look past for sure, but last thing you want to do is start having hiccups and dropping the ball and having some bad habits creep into your game right before that Saturday game. So I'm hoping they're tight and tuned going into that game, and nice to see our backup goaltender, quote unquote, against the Red Wings again tonight.
Ilya Samsonov is who you're referencing, and I wonder if he can carry the torch again. 4 goals against in the past 3 appearances for the Leafs. All 3 victories, of course, looking for 4 in a row against Detroit. Would you play Matthews if you're Sheldon Keefe? Like, I'm erring on the side of caution, I think, if I'm Sheldon Keefe. And all they pretty much said the last couple of days, it's something that's been bothering him for a while, like whatever that means. And I think it's been quite definitive and clear, I think, in anybody who's watched Austin Matthews this season. There's something a bit off, and it's so easy to speculate and say it's an injury, but there seems to have been something off from the onset early on in the season. Would you err on the side of caution and say, you know what, Austin, take this night off, maybe have a couple pops with your dad? It is the dad strip.
Yeah, it totally depends on what it is, man. Like, what is bothering him? How bad could it be? What are the doctors saying? Is it getting better day to day? If it is, then by all means, let's try to get it to 100%. Let's try to be ready for Saturday. I have no problem with that, but at the end of the day, we don't know what it is and what it's like. I don't know if this nagging injury is contributing to him not being as good as his potential is, you could say. It's all dependent on those factors. And I mean, they're going to have to get together with the trainers, the doctors, and the coach and say, what's going on? What do you feel? And at the end of the day, I think the only one that really knows what the difference maker is going to be is Austin Matthews. And if he says, that was pretty beneficial. I feel like I'm getting better every day without, banging it around and grinding during game days. And if I could take one more off, I think it would be really beneficial. Then by all means, sit him out. We've shown that we've got enough weapons to win games against these teams, but I would like him to be ready for Saturday, no doubt, or else I'm really thinking maybe there's a bigger problem than people are letting on.
Yeah, that's the thinking. And again, I think they're trying to control it a bit. I'm sure anytime there's an injury, you have to wonder, what truly is up. But from the sounds of it, they don't seem too worked up about it, which is excellent news. And I think assuming that he could play, like let's say yesterday was game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it felt like Austin Matthews could have played. But I don't mind load management, to borrow a Kawhi Leonard conversation, especially when it comes to one of the best players on the planet, your best player. I think you are trending and trying to get this guy fully healthy and ready for game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if that means missing a couple games midway through the season, so be it. Selfishly, I would not like to see Austin Matthews at All-Star Weekend. Go away with your family, go away with your friends, have a couple days away from the ice. I've got no problem with that, and we'll see if he is, in fact, named an All-Star. But I've got no problem sitting this guy out for 6 days, potentially to have him back against the Boston Bruins on Saturday. That should be a marquee game. And I think at the very least, he has earned it, and it gives opportunity for other guys. Speaking of which, what did you make of Bobby, don't call me Vince McMahon's NHL debut last night? Played 11:02.
Yeah, looked pretty solid. You get over 10 minutes in play, and they put a little highlight package together of him there, which is kind of neat for them to do for a guy of. Yeah, I was kind of. It looked good. I mean, at the time where they did that package, he had about 8 minutes played, and he had 4 really solid clips, which is pretty hard to do with the nerves going on. Your dad's in town, first NHL game in Toronto. Difficult to do. So, the kid looks like he's got a little bit of size and quite a bit of speed. And, I'd like to see him throw that body around and get on the forecheck and kind of be an asset that way. And it looks like he's confident and he's able to make some plays and just look pretty good for a guy that's never played a game in that league. So
And
everything
Sheldon
positive.
Keefe, yeah, no, nothing but positives on my part. Like he didn't flip the pendulum one way or another for me. Like there's, I think, plenty of guys who can make that type of mark in the league. It is one game too, but to play 11:02, I think, is a welcome sight. Sheldon Keefe felt very positive and was sort of raving about him post game. So I'm sure for sure we'll see him back out there against Detroit tonight, and I think all the power to them. I really want to see what they have in the American Hockey League. The Marlies are having a great year. Again, as mentioned, he's coming off the reigning player of the week in the American Hockey League, so might as well give him a look. And it's safe to say I wasn't crazy about Pierre Engvall in the top 6. I hate him on the second power play unit, man. Just keep. And I'm not being mean about this. Like, keep that plug in the bottom 6. You need your bottom 6 plugs. The guy does a lot of really good things well, but he's definitely like not an offensive heavy guy that I would think about scoring that big time goal.
No, he's not. And my qualm with him is, and more so than Kerfoot, it is just just it's not. I don't want to
IQ.
say, yeah, and just like if it's not going your way, he's just kind of always just blends in, always just kind of blending and blending, and it's like, would you do something like get pissed off or just unload the tank one shift and just run around and just be an asshole and chuck somebody and get that puck and forecheck like crazy and beak off a little bit and just make some fireworks? Like do something. Do something better. Don't just, it's like he's always just kind of looking around, waiting for the seam to open up and just kind of waiting to get that play. And then just about like 85% of the time, it just nothing comes of it, and he just has a useless shift. And it's like, I know not everyone can go out there and be Nylander every night, but like it's like, just try to force something if it's not there tonight, and it's not there almost every night. I know he chips in with some goals here and there, but yeah, definitely a frustrating thing, and you can't expect everyone to be that much jam, but like try to do something. Like show me that you're doing everything in your control to be effective, and he just doesn't seem to do that.
6'5", he plays like he's 5'10", and therein lies the problem. But again, don't get me wrong. Engvall's done a lot of really good things this season. I just think he's better served in the bottom 6. And quite frankly, I wouldn't I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like McMahon serve in the top six if Matthews can't go tonight. And again, we're not privy to lineup information. It is a back to back. We're not going to know much, I think, until closer to puck drop if Matthews is going to play. If he's not, so this is just sheer speculation on this part. Speaking of speculation, I'm not sure if you saw this story late on Wednesday night. But according to a report in the Toronto Star, the Toronto Maple Leafs are closing in on hosting the 2024 NHL All-Star Game. Of course, the festivities in Sunrise, Florida this season. What do you make of this? It's been 24 years. I think it's a long time coming, and it is, the mecca of hockey, right?
That's crazy that they don't have it. They always seem to have it at. I think they're trying to grow the game, right? And there's
Yeah.
no help needed to get hockey involvement in the city of Toronto. So it's almost like we know we're going to sell it out. We know everyone's there is going to be a lifelong hockey fan. Seem to want to do it in places like Dallas or Arizona or Florida or wherever they do it, Columbus, and these places where you know you want to get the non-hockey fan invested in hockey. And like you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the kids, it's such a good thing for the kids. And I
Yeah.
don't love the All-Star game. It doesn't do anything for me. It means nothing. It's guys are dinking around wearing capes and doing weird shit. And they're trying so hard to think of new crazy things and reinvent the wheel. And I just roll my eyes at it, but I'm more of a pure hockey guy. So if you want to, involve kids and fans of the game that aren't normally, I think that's a good way to do it. And I think that's why it hasn't been there in 25 years, which almost blows your mind. But when you think about it a little bit deeper, you kind of understand why. But nonetheless, exciting that it'll come into potentially Toronto next year. And I imagine it'll be a big splash in that town.
The last time it was in Toronto, their all-stars, Matt Sundin, Dmitry Yushkevich, and Curtis Joseph. That's how long it's been.
No
It just
kidding. That's
shows
going
you how
back a
long
little
it,
ways.
like, the year 2000. So echoing your sentiments, like, I think it's great for the kids. Obviously, it's a boost for tourism, but I could only wonder somebody who rolls into town saying, "Hey, I'm going to take my family to All-Star Weekend." I don't know if it's adjusted prices, but knowing what I know about being at Scotiabank Arena, it's about $50 for a beer. Not quite. I'm exaggerating, but it's really, really expensive. Imagine lumbering in for All-Star Weekend and taking your family and the price tag that comes with that, especially in Toronto.
Yeah, it would be massive. Not a cheap thing, not something that anybody going paycheck to paycheck is going to be able to do, which is super unfortunate. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, why they maybe have it down in other barns. But I mean, is it really that much cheaper to fly into Fort Lauderdale and get a hotel somewhere, and then you're gonna have to travel to the rink? I mean, there's not much around that rink. It is in the middle of the marsh by the outlet malls, which has
Sunrise,
always
yeah.
been my problem with the Florida Panthers. There's
Yeah.
not much around there, to be honest. So most people are going to be based out of Fort Lauderdale, and I can't imagine the beers
Yes.
are too much cheaper in their barn. But nonetheless, it's an expensive sport, and those owners want their dough too. So yeah, I can't imagine anything being cheap. But that being said, I just got back from Disneyland, and that felt like getting shot in the wallet pretty hard too. So there's not much in today's world that's cheap when you're doing tourism stuff, is there?
Yeah, you know what it is? It's inflation. Everything these days we blame on inflation. It's $80 for a beer, inflation. My car's got a flat tire, I need a replacement, inflation. You got to pay out the ass for a new tire. It's just a evolving door of inflation. But yeah, it's intriguing, and I think it's so great for the city, man. Like, as somebody who is a Toronto resident, I am looking forward to 2024 and the NHL All-Star Game, potentially being in our backyard. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But that is a report from the Toronto Star. Meantime, the wrap up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. I went 2 for 2 yesterday, Rosie. I had the over UC Saros 30 plus saves. He hit that. And John Tavares, it took a while, but I got that apple on the power play with 1:15 remaining. So tonight, I am sticking with that Leaf heavy theme that's brought us success all season long. This team is a wagon. We all know that. Into Detroit to take on the Red Wings. And one guy I brought up earlier on who I've just loved this season, Willie Nylander. I'm looking at not one, but two props tonight. Over 3.5 shots on goal. He hit it yesterday. He hit 4. Cleared in 3 of the last 4, that number of 3.5. And how about an anytime goal for Nylander? I think he's hit a bit of a rut, if maybe. He played up the middle, so no Matthews. This guy's going to be shot happy. They're looking for that trigger guy on the power play. one goal in the past 7. So I like the over 3.5 shots on goal and an anytime goal for Willie Nylander tonight.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that should be some serious plus money. Not easy things to do for anybody, especially when you're just picking a single player. And 4 shots is a lot. Like you said, you got it last night, but not a bad bet when you know the team and you follow them really closely. I was checking the box score last night and early on in the game and saw that Tavares had a goal. I chuckled to myself knowing that you picked him for an apple and thought, oh shit, he's
Yeah.
going to score tonight, not dish. But eventually got you one too. So hot on the trail rate again here for you. 2 in a row is not easy to get one when you do this damn segment, let alone 2. So good on you. And yeah, I imagine that's some good plus money and not a bad bet either on Nylander. He's been very, very solid.
The moment I say that I'm going to start losing, but last night I had 7 props in play on a betting platform and I went 6 for 7. The only thing that missed was Zach Hyman and the over shots on goal. He had 2 shots on goal, needed over 3.5, but I got McDavid. I had the Tavares anytime assist. I had the Oilers puck line. Like I was feeling it last night, and Zach Hyman let me down. I could have went 7 for 7, but you take your winnings in betting and we move on. So we look forward to this Leafs and Detroit game. And again, we're looking forward to Friday's show as well. We're going to preview Leafs and Bruins #1. That's going to be an epic battle on Saturday. I'm also looking forward to Seattle and Boston tonight. Seattle's won 6 in a row. They're probably, if not the hottest team close to that, and maybe it's the 2 hottest teams doing battle in Boston between the Bees and the Seattle Kraken. And also, as mentioned off the top, your buddy, your former teammate with the Philadelphia Flyers, Claude Giroux, we pre-taped with him yesterday. We're going to play that interview tomorrow, Rosie.
Yeah, anyone who's liking the likes of a man who's been in the league for endless years, all-star caliber guy, man, it's crazy. I kind of think of G as, a middle of the pack age-wise guy and a little bit younger when I played with him. And the years tick by and he's talking about getting made fun of for being a wily veteran on his team, which is one of those things that just happens, man. So, but also a very solid guy. Good
Yeah.
interview with him and always a guy that's quite media trained and says the right things and stuff. And we try to put him on the spot here or there and he doesn't bite too hard, but always a good chuckle with G. Solid guy, solid teammate. So that'll be fun. And yeah, I with the Kraken and the Bruins here, I just keep waiting for someone to kick a leg off the chair
I know.
of these Boston Bruins. And I would just love it if they could gain some frustration against the Kraken and get some bad mojo going of some kind. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but be nice if they could start dropping some points and we could claw on some ground. And then on Saturday night they go into playing the Leafs and they know damn well they've lost to the Leafs already this year, which only a handful of teams have, believe it or not. So a nice little weekend coming up of hockey and some meaningful stuff going on for our Toronto Maple Leafs.
Now that you say that, I might take a stab on the Seattle Kraken as a road dog, just more so because of how hot they've been. And with you, like Boston's got 4 regulation losses, man. It's January 12th. Like at some point in time, they have to start losing some games. They're on pace for like a record season. And it just shows you like Toronto is on pace again for like 115, 116 points. And they're still a billion points behind Boston. They've just been an exceptional story. Tim York writes in, looking at a draw in Boston tonight. I like that. So looking at potentially some OT action between Seattle and the Bees. He's betting on the perfection line. It's always a really, really good bet. Of course, Jake DeBrusk banged up a couple weeks ago, so the perfection line is back together for the Boston Bruins. So a lot of things to consider on tonight's plate as we wrap here, Rosie.
Yeah, and not to be a whiner or anything like that. And I know
Yeah,
Leafs fans get a lot of heat from other fans about this, but like, what are the chances? The Boston Bruins weren't really on anyone's radar to be this good, and the Leafs have had
I
the
know.
season that they've had, and they're still not winning their goddamn division. Like, come on! If you don't run into a 3-time Stanley Cup finalist one year, then you run into this record setting, no one's ever had a better season potentially other team that comes out of the woodworks. Like, what gives, man? We're doing everything we can to be able to run through the playoffs and constantly just run into garbage. But I mean, that is life in this division, I guess. But it seems like you got to shake your head sometimes because we're doing everything right and things kind of keep stacking up against. And I am not making excuses or anything. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. I get all that,
Mhm.
but just kind of makes you shake your head that you're having this kind of a season and you're really nowhere close to leading even your division.
Do you understand French?
Not really.
C'est
Just the
la
bad
vie.
stuff.
C'est la vie, en français. That's life, my dude. I know exactly what you're saying. You're not complaining. And again, we'll look forward to that game against the Boston Bruins coming up on Saturday. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Take care. Talk on Friday.